welcome to another Watercolor Wednesday. This is Liz here, and I'm so excited today. I'm planning on trying to paint some little pansies. I wanted to paint like maybe two. I've got some nice cardi paper that I want to do a painting on of two pansies, and I wanted to use a sort of a pastel pink and lavender or lilac. And I've got today my Winsor & Newton professional watercolor paints, and I'm going to mix the first color. So I thought I'd first show you how I'm going to do that. I have my paints in this tin. It's from Core. I bought some Core watercolor paints at one stage, and I love those, but I haven't got very many of them. But I store my Winsor & Newton professional watercolors. I buy them in the tubes, and then I decant a little bit into a half pan, and I always write the name on, and I have a little magnet at the bottom. And then what's so great about this tin is it's got this nice palette on the top, on the inside. And so I really enjoy using it. I've got two vessels of water and, of course, my paper towel. But at the moment, I'm just using the one, and I want to show you how I want to mix the first color. So I'm using permanent rose. I have already wet my paints, and I'm going to use one of these little recesses, adding some more water to that. I want it to be quite a watery mixture, and I'll show you what color that comes out as. Very pretty, and we could use that color, but I wanted the pastel shade. So now, to get in watercolor, to get more and more pale shades, you add water and you keep that translucence. But I actually don't want that. I actually want more of a, I suppose, a less transparent look. So I'm using just white watercolor. Every set of watercolor you buy when you start comes with a white, which is never used. So I'm going to mix that in. I'm going to put it on the side so that I get the amount that I want. But I don't just want pink. I want it to be more peachy. So to do that, I'm rinsing my brush out, and I'm just going to use a tiny little bit of Winsor yellow and add that to the permanent rose, which I think I might need a little bit more, which turns it into a slight peachy orangey color. I'll show you there. And now I want to turn that into the pastel. I know I'm being fussy, but I have in mind a color I want. So I'm adding some white here. And the thing is, I want this first coat to be fairly watery. I want more white in that. Why not use up some of the whites? And that looks like exactly the color that I'm hoping for. Okay, so now we've got our first color. The second color we're going to be using is the permanent rose itself. So I'm going to put some of that in a little reservoir. But I want that to be a thicker mixture because I don't want it to run too much. And then I want to use a violet. So the only violet I have is this ultramarine violet, which I think looks absolutely fine to me. And I want that to be very thick. So I may actually, I see I've got some white little dregs of gouache left there. I might actually just come into that directly. Let me drop some water so it's well activated when I get there. And then, so I'm going to set this aside here. And I'm going to get my paper. And I'm not very good at planning compositions. Excuse me, I just need a sip of water. I have a very dry throat this morning. I went out last night and I was chatting a lot. I want to try and draw, I think I want the first one to be here, and I want an approximate circle so that I've got somewhere to guide and approximate middle to the circle, and then I want the other one to come sort of into it as if it's behind it. So that's all I'm drawing, very, very lightly. I probably need to go off that point as well, so I hope I can see that. I think I will see it. And what I'm going to do is try and paint them very loosely. So I'm going into this watery mixture. I really want it to be watery. Even going to add some more here. And just dabbing off a bit. And I'm going to start my paintbrush pointing towards the middle. And then I'm going to just create these sort of compound petals. I want it to remain wet. I want it to look loose and sort of organic. And then one on the other side. Sorry, I'm turning my page. So it looks a little bit like a butterfly. Just get some more pretty little lines. Keep it wet, Elizabeth. Okay, now while it's still nice and wet and ready, I'm going to go with the darker pink. I don't want that too watery, so I dabbed it off, and then I'm just going to dot it into to the base there, and the base here. I want an actual circle here. Okay, that's cool. And I might just dot a few other little pieces here and there, just so that it can bleed. Nicely. It can do its own thing. And I'm going to dry my brush off, and I'm going to go into the ultramarine violet. I'm using quite a thick mixture here, and I'm hoping it's going to work. And I want this just around the edge here. Don't want it to bleed in too much. So it is bleeding quite a lot. So I'm going to leave it for a little bit and come back. Maybe I just need to make the mixture thicker. Maybe my brush was too wet. Trying again there, that's better. It's not moving too much. Also, it's busy drying off. So, yeah, it's quite windy today. And then I want to just draw some of that out. This will blend in a bit, but it will just give a little bit of definition, I hope. Okay, now we're going to go onto the top petal, And I want this to again be nice and organic. And I want it to have sort of fluffy, pansy, pretty round edge. And then do the bottom one. Forgive me if I'm making you seasick with my turning around all the time. I've gone out of my circle, I'm just telling you. Just want that to walk down there. I'm going to let the top one walk. I've got a bit of a bleed there, which I don't mind. All right, dry the brush off a little bit into the rose. Tip it over there and let it bleed. Little bit on the edges. There we are. I maybe need this to dry just for a minute or 7. It's not really round, is it? But never mind, I can't fix it. I'll just put leaves around there. It's a bit long. Maybe I must make my circle a fraction darker so that I can see. That can go that way. Just while I'm waiting for this to dry. Trouble with pencil marks is you can't erase them once you've watercolored over them. And like that there, you can see it. So that is a pity. Never mind, I will make some sort of a plan, hopefully. Didn't want that so wet. So this should be quite thick here now. I'm just pulling this out a little bit. There we are. Okay, and now we're going to leave that to dry and we'll come back for details later. Now I wanted this one to be kind of lavender, so I'm going to do the same story. I think I'm going to go with the Windsor Blue red shade. Although no, I'm not. I'm going to use this ultramarine violet that we've already used in the center and that we're going to continue to use in the center. And I'm going to add white to that, and that should actually make a very pretty lavender. Adding water. Let me carry this off so I don't drop water over everything. Let me add some white on the edge. Am I in screen? Yes, I am in screen. I went to a concert last night. It was Lieder. I don't know if you know Lieder, German Lieder. Schumann and Beethoven, given by an old student of mine that now he's married, an American lady. I took him to the States in his matric year, so when he was 17, he's now in his early 30s. And he studied opera, and he's been in a number of operas. I might have mentioned him before. He sings in America as well as South Africa, and so it was wonderful to go and hear his concert. He also did some of his own compositions, which were awesome to listen to. I'm just getting a bit more in there. Okay. let's see what that looks like. Let me use the back of this piece so I don't waste my paper. But I think that's a lovely colour. And I think it goes quite nicely with this one. So, all right. Let's start with our first one here. And I don't mind if it actually bleeds into that a little bit. I was hoping to leave some white spaces. So, other side of the butterfly here. Always think of pansies looking a bit like a butterfly. Can see if I can do the whole thing. Want more water. I don't want it to be too thick. Just going over these again to keep them wet. Getting a bit of a bleed, which I like. Got a bit over my circle, so I'm cleaning my brush off. I'm using my very clean water, and I want to get a cotton bud. So now I'm just going to go around in a circle here with clean water and try and soak that up with my cotton bud to try and get that clean. Let me get some more clean water. I don't want it to bleed out and create what's called a bloom. Good, I wanted that circle. So now I want to go into, what should I do? Maybe just first a more watery version of this, but without the white. And dot that in. I must say, I don't think this really looks like a pansy. I've been trying, this is about my fourth one. Go around the edges a bit here and there. And now into the thicker mixture. We're going all into the whole center again, which I don't want. Stop it. I do not want you there. I want that to be yellow and blue are not happy bedfellows, put it that way. They're fine if you want a muted color, but they will tend to make brown. It's still wet. I think I'm going to use my finger. And hopefully that will have stopped. Have any of you guys visited Japan? I don't know if I've mentioned before that I'm kind of obsessed with watching this guy on YouTube called Travel Geek. Now, I don't think I'll ever go to Japan. To start with, I can't afford it. Secondly, my anxiety with travel, it's not happening. But I love watching it and all the things that he shows, and these things called pod hotels that are so reasonably priced. It really fascinates me. Okay, so now I'm going to leave this to dry and then I'll be back. And you won't even know that I've gone. Hi there, so I'm back and my flowers have nicely dried. And now I'm going to use my fine size 2 brush. These are silver black velvet brushes, by the way. And I'm going to, I haven't actually wet this. Going to just wet the yellow. And I'm going to do some little dots around with the yellow. And over here, I don't want to wet what's underneath there. So I'm going to let those dry. And then do another layer on top of these. And then I'm going to use some of my darker ultramarine violet and just try and bring some fine lines out. I think I need this to be darker. I think I'm going to add the smallest little touch of Mars Black to that, just to kind of darken it. And I want these little bits to go out. I think these are kind of generic pansies that don't really look all that much like pansies. I'm not quite sure, but I think we're going to get some flowers anyway. There we are. And I'm going to mix some more of that. For the pink one, a little bit of Mars Black. And now I'm going to go back to just the plain ultramarine violet and try and do some very fine lines out. I love this size 2 silver black velvet brush. It's so fine. One just has to keep a very light touch, which I sometimes find tricky. I tend to want to press down on it a little bit too much. There we are, and then I think I'm going to use the permanent rose here on this one for some fine lines. Try and get them very fine and loose as I can. I'm trying to hold my brush a little bit further back to try and be lighter and looser. Loosey-goosey. Whoops. Find this a little bit tricky. There we go. Alrighty. Now I want to erase the little bits of the circle that I had there in pencil. I'm not going to get it off there. So I think I need to do something about the edges of this. And I do think sometimes a pansy has kind of, it can be sort of white tipped. So I am going to wake up this white that has fallen asleep here that was with the pink. I just need to kind of scrub it a bit to get it awake. This is a very inexpensive watercolor paint, so it doesn't always do exactly what you would like it to. And I'm just going to try painting a very pale pink edge to this pansy. And see what that looks like. So this will probably dry with a bit of a hard line. I'll show you what we're going to do about that in a moment. I just want to finish while this paint is still damp. Have you guys been getting some lovely spring weather or not really yet? We started off with some cooler weather and then we went through another hot spell, which dismayed me somewhat. I actually like that pale color and I'm finding this too dark, so I'm going to do the same thing here, even if there's little tips of the darker color. But today is lovely and fresh. I washed my bed linen and I hung it up outside in this quite a brisk wind, and when I took it off the line, I just love that smell of lovely fresh linen, all cleanly wind dried, and I kind of look forward to going to sleep tonight with that nice fresh scent. It's funny. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse off my brush and dry it off so that it's just damp, and then I'm going to soften the edge of what I've just done. So you want to be careful not to use too much water, and then rinse it off again and do it here, because you don't want things to be too wet. It will cause a problem because the rest of the picture is dry. So I'm just blending it now. It's easier in a way with a slightly harder brush than this. Make sure I've dried it off. Blend it down. There we are. And now I'm going to do some leaves and some stems. So I think I'm going to go with some sap green, which I have here. I've got that yellow, I might as well mix it with the yellow. And that little bit of purple will just darken it up a bit. And then I'm going to take, always find this part hard, so going from the center in my imagination and there we are. Now that stem is too thin, so I just need to, pansies don't have such long stems, but we're painting something imaginary anyway. And this one, and then I'm going to take some perylene green, which is darker. I'm just going to do a bit of a shadow down the one side to give it a bit of dimension. Oops. I'm going to take some more of the sap green there and make the stem just a little bit wider. And now mixing the two together, and I'm going to give, I think, some leaves. I just need to look up what a pansy leaf looks like, actually. Got an idea they're slightly serrated and quite wide. And this is Unsplash. Oh, okay, there we are. They're quite serrated. So I'm just going to get a bit more sap green there and add a bit of a shape to that. I never quite know how to do a slightly more jiggledy leaf. I think I might need to use a slightly bigger brush for this. This tiny little detail brush is too small. I'm going to use my size 6 brush. better. And give it a point. And then we might as well do a bud or something as well. So I'll get to the bud in a minute. Just want to do some more jaggedy edges there. I think I'm going to do from here. I'm going to let that be a bud. And some more here. Point down first. It's nice to have the little bubble of water to play with. When it's too dry, I'm finding it hard to get the jiggledy-jiggledies out. Then I think I'm going to do a nice leaf coming out of here. Another one coming right underneath the flower. This is nature, so nothing is perfect, which is always a relief. I just need to get a point to that. There we are. We need some more here. I quite like the sap green mixed with the perylene green. Get a nice point. Oopsie. And then I think I'm going to do a falling bud here. Oh, it's yikes, just what one does not want. think I got that in time. I think that I should use my little fine one for this. Why is that bleeding in there? Phew. Must still be wet from the pink that I put there. Okay, so drying that, I want to put in a little bud here. Both of these, so going to mix this together. I'm not making the peach, I'm just doing pink because it's a bud. I'm just going to do a round bud thing, and I'll put some leaves over it in a minute once it's dry. And meantime, I think I can just do some sort of viney things and try to do some fine lines. So this is very loose and not realistic. There's going to be a small leaf here. Okay, so this is all nice and dry now. So is my paint, and it's everywhere. Just want to... So now I want to use some perylene green. I've got my size 6 brush here. And I just want to do some little things around the sides of the buds. I need to add some more sap green to this just to lighten it up a little bitty. Just want this to be a bit looser. I think that I actually think I'm going to call those leaves done. I could, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to use my very thin little brushy again and do some details on the leaves. very lightly. Just to add a bit of interest. Always try to add a bit of a curve to these things. To try and make that look a bit better. Add there. Sorry, I've kept quiet. Always find it a bit tricky speaking when I paint. There we are. And now I want to add some more yellow. Let me make sure my brush is clean. Going to really need to work the brush into this yellow to wake it up. And then I'm going to try painting that there. I think I'm going to try a little bit of this new gamboge as well, which is a slightly darker color. I know this is very bad. I'm mixing my colors in here. But yeah, I think that's better. I'm going to leave the little bit of white around and maybe just put some little lines from the yellow going out. There we are, and put some of the new gamboge on there. And I think I'm going to call that done. I must be quite honest, I don't know. It's not as successful as I would have hoped, but I've done my best, and I hope you've liked watching the video. And I'd love to know if you try to do some pansies or some kind of pansy flowers, how they turn out. But I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye now.